All right, let's dive into something big today. We're unpacking a really powerful strategic manifesto for how to reinvent brand India. And the core idea here, it's a massive shift in mindset. It's about moving from being a service provider to becoming a sovereign creator. The title really says it all. This is about a future that is built, not begged for.
So the entire argument kicks off with this one single provocative question. What would the world actually miss if India just vanished tomorrow? Now, the manifesto argues that if we're being brutally honest with ourselves, the answer right now is very little of consequence. And that's not talking about people or culture, of course. It's talking about indispensable, homegrown intellectual property. It's a really stark diagnosis, and it sets the stage for everything else we're about to cover.
So here's the game plan. First, we're going to look at the diagnosis, this idea of a colonial hangover. Then we'll get into the cost, and believe me, it's staggering. After that, we'll explore the blueprint for a new way forward. Then we'll look at the critical policy balance that's required. And finally, it all comes down to the ultimate choice facing the nation.
Okay, first up, the diagnosis. The central argument here is pretty simple. You can't build a new future if you don't really understand the psychological chains of the past. And this isn't just a history lesson, It's about a deep-seated cultural pattern that is still shaping economic behavior right now today.
In this slide, wow, it paints a really powerful picture of an unbroken chain of servitude. The metaphor is blunt, right? From the railway coolie back in 1890 to the cyber coolie of today. So while the job has changed from hauling physical goods to hauling digital code, the fundamental posture, that of a service provider just executing someone else's commands, has pretty much stayed the same.
You see, this posture, this service mindset, it creates a really deep identity crisis. The perception of the Indian in Western stories has kind of shifted from a figure of servitude to, well, a satirical one. This quote just nails it. From servitude to satire, the Indian remains a caricature. And without a unified, respected economic identity, it's almost impossible for a nation to act with a single strategic focus.
Okay, so we've talked about the psychology of it. Now let's talk about the money. Because this isn't just theory, it has a staggering, quantifiable economic cost. This next part is all about the direct financial hit from failing to build a culture of innovation and ownership. It's a massive IP drain. And look at this. This chart just lays it all out. On the left, you've got India's GDP sitting at around $4 trillion. Okay, now look at the right. That's the combined market cap of just two American companies, Microsoft and Google. And here's the kicker. Both are led by Indian-born CEOs, and their value is built on the backs of countless Indian engineers. That value, $6.25 trillion. That's more than 55% greater than India's entire economic output. It's just mind-blowing. Let's just put that number up by itself for a second. $2.25 trillion. That's the difference. And look, this isn't framed as some kind of diaspora success story. No, this is presented as the bill. It's the direct economic cost of a systemic failure, the failure to create an ecosystem where our best ideas are built, owned, and scaled right here at home.
So we've diagnosed the problem and we've counted the cost. The big question is, what's the solution? Well, the proposal is a major strategic pivot. It's about moving away from begging for access to Western markets and instead building something the world is forced to respect. The blueprint for this is something called frugal branding.
So what exactly is frugal branding? Well, at its heart, it's a philosophy of UX realism. UX, user experience. It's all about the actual quality, the reliability, the function of the product. The strategy says, instead of spending a fortune on marketing hype, you pour every single resource into making the product so good that it basically sells itself. The goal is simple, and it's powerful. Under-promise and over-deliver.
And this slide just draws the perfect contrast. On the left, you've got the Western hustle model, what's being called VX gluttony. VX is viewer experience. It's all sizzle, all hype, all perception, and it usually leads to overpromising and underdelivering, which gets you fleeting fame. But on the right, you have the frugal model, which is obsessed with the user experience. This is the product-first path that economies like Japan and South Korea perfected, and it leads to durable, lasting fortune.
And if you want a perfect, real-world example of frugal branding in action, look no further than this. This iconic tagline from Hero Honda, it needed zero translation. It wasn't about some fancy lifestyle or an abstract feeling. It was a simple, powerful message focused on a single, undeniable product truth: reliability. The product's performance, its UX, was the brand story.
Okay, so for a frugal branding model to work on a national scale, it needs a really disciplined allocation of resources from the top. And this brings us to a classic economic idea, but with a modern strategic twist: the balance between guns and butter.
Now this table right here, this is where the rubber meets the road for policymakers. Butter is your R&D, your innovation. Guns is your military spending. Now look at Israel and South Korea, two nations that are under constant threat. Their R&D spending actually rivals or even exceeds their high military spending. It's a strategy of survival-driven innovation. Now look at India. Military spending is more than 3 times its investment in R&D. This is what's called the inverse balance.
And this really drives the point home. Napoleon's famous law reminds us that military strength has to be sustained by economic capacity. The stomach of a modern nation isn't just food, it's its innovative economy. A strong R&D base, the butter, is the absolute prerequisite for sustainable military power, the guns.
And all of this brings us to the climax of the argument. After the diagnosis, the cost, the blueprint, and the policy debate, it all boils down to a single, conscious choice between two very different futures. And the way it's framed is with a really powerful metaphor. Think of it like you're driving a car.
First, you glance in the rearview mirror, and what do you see? You see the ghosts of the past, the railway coolie, the cyber coolie. They're this haunting reminder that the posture of servitude isn't just behind us, it's still riding shotgun. Then, you look through the windscreen at the road ahead. And let me tell you, it looks hazardous. The warning signs are everywhere. Tariffs, visa denials, IP theft. It's a global landscape that doesn't just hand out respect to those who don't command it with their own indispensable creations. And finally, your eyes fall to the dashboard. This is the present moment. This is the critical decision point that lies right in front of India's policymakers, entrepreneurs, and its creators. This is where the choice has to be made.
And here is that choice, laid out as 2 buttons. You've got the flashing red button, beg for access. That's the old path. And then you have the steady green button, build for respect. That's the new manifesto, a disciplined commitment to creating things the world simply cannot ignore. The question is, which button gets pushed?
The manifesto leaves us with this powerful, definitive statement. And it's not just a clever tagline, it's a strategic mandate. It's a call to action for a future where value is created and owned at home, commanding global respect not because we asked for it, but because we earned it. Brand India, built, not begged.